So now we're in the seventh part of the Peloponnesian War series by Kings and Generals. Last video, Athens got wrecked by Syracuse. I'm still shocked about that. We covered that yesterday, and now freaking Persia seems like it's about to jump in, so I don't know, man. It depends who they join with, right? I have heard in the past that Sparta made an alliance with Persia, which is wild, you know? But, man, the Greeks, man, their biggest enemy is themselves, you know? And, so, yeah, I'm thinking if that actually happens now, then Athens seems like it's about to just completely start spiraling. So let's find out.
Their sons. As the triremes from her Sicilian expedition were set alight upon the Mediterranean Sea, Athens was utterly ruined. Thousands of Athens' working and fighting-age population had been lost in that doomed campaign, and her people were furious at the pro-war politicians who had brought this disaster upon their city. During the war, the arch-traitor Alcibiades had advised Sparta to take over Decelea in Attica and set up fortifications to starve the population. As a result of this, the silver mine
Alcibiades? That's the only time I'm gonna try to pronounce his name for the rest of this video. He turned? Holy crap, it was weird. So he was supposed to go back, right? I think, what was it, for the trial? I guess he decided, screw that, and then he appears in Sparta, tries to scare Sparta last video about the Athenian power. Now that Athens has lost, he's switched. He's all over the place, man. This guy's all over the place. But yeah, the writing's on the wall for Athens, right? That campaign seems like it'll have big repercussions for the rest of this series.
And fertile agrarian hinterlands of Athens diminished in revenue due to the Spartan fortifications limiting access. On the pan-Hellenic stage, Athens was weaker than ever, and her control over her allies and vassals had never been so feeble. Meanwhile, Sparta had been buoyed by Athens' humbling, and its pro-war faction was gaining in popularity and power. However, as weakened as Athens was, it was still the dominant naval power in the Aegean Sea, with even Sparta's new allies in Syracuse not being enough to tip the balance in that theatre of the arms race. To compensate for this critical shortcoming, Sparta swallowed its pride and asked for financial assistance from someone they normally despised, Achaemenid Persia. The King of Kings probably no longer aspired to conquer all of Hellas, as his predecessor Xerxes had 2 generations earlier. Still, he hoped that by destabilizing Athens, the Achaemenids would gain access to the crucial shipping lane of the Hellespont. Thus, Sparta and Persia were a match made in Ahura Mazda and Zeus's heaven, as Persia—
Oh my goodness. Holy crap. It's so wild to me, you know, because, you know, usually the popular not myth, but, you know, a lot of people think when it comes to Persia and Greece, usually the popular, you know, Persian invasion of Greece, and then the Spartans being a big bastion in fighting off the Persians, you know, with the Thermopylae and whatnot. And, yeah, it's always so wild to see that, yeah, Sparta eventually just, becomes allies with freaking Persia because they just hate Athens so much. It's just so wild to me, man. Man, the Greeks, they would have been so, I think if the Greeks have just been one unified group, they could have been probably one of the most dangerous groups of all time. But I'm amazed by their, you know, division, you know. They're obviously very independent in their areas, and I feel like this eventually comes back to bite them when Rome conquers them, you know, because of the Romans really capitalize on their division, and, yeah, you know, it didn't do them favors in the long run, but I'm still just shocked that this happened, you know.
Persia could provide monetary support. According to Thucydides, the second phase of the war began the same way the first one did, with preemptive escalations on both sides. King Agis set forth to found a Spartan colony at Heraclea, where he could build a strategic location for controlling trade and supplies from the north. In addition, several rebellious cities under Athenian hegemony sent delegations to seek assistance against their Ionian overlord. Alcibiades advised the Spartans to slowly build alliances with the island allies of Athens, such as Chios, which they did. He himself, having come under pressure due to allegations of having a child with the wife of King Pleistoanax, proposed an alliance with a local satrap in Ionia called Tissaphernes to have a base away from Sparta and escape. This proved to be a fruitful partnership, for when Miletus was against Athens, Tissaphernes stepped in as a negotiator. Athens responded by sending ships and establishing a base of operations in the territory that revolted. Meanwhile, Alcibiades grew increasingly afraid of losing his privileged position in Sparta, as King Agis became impatient with his presence. These tensions came to a head when the Spartan general, Astilochos, was ordered to kill Alcibiades, prompting the turncoat to flee to Tissaphernes, who was growing anxious due to the Spartan rejection of the treaty. Alcibiades then extended an olive branch to the top brass of his erstwhile homeland, initiating talks with the Athenian upper classes, who had grown distrustful of their city's democratic institutions. To win the Athenian oligarchs over to his side, Alcibiades promised to bring them money from Persia, funds which the economically starved Athenians required. Alcibiades' envoys spread the news and made the arrival of Persian gold a done deal. The Athenian troops at Samos seemed intrigued by the idea, as were some of the generals. Alcibiades intended to engender enough support to initiate a double coup at Athens and Samos. Some generals, like Thrasybulus, were avowed Democrats, but despite this, they saw Alcibiades as a possible solution to Athenian chronic political instability. Others, like Phrynichos, were not keen on him returning and maintained that Persia did not have Athenian interests at heart. Despite his concerns, he could not stop Alcibiades from setting his plans into motion. On the 14th day of the Attic month of Thargelion, June 9th, 411, the conspirators seized the reality of power. In Samos, the
I'm telling you, Alcibiades? Can I call him Al, guys? I'm sorry, I'm not gonna get his name right. I'm not even gonna get close. I'm just gonna call him Al. Forgive me if it bugs you, but it's better than hearing me mispronounce it every single time. So Al, like I said, has been all over the place, man. Like, frickin', he's... Like I mentioned earlier, like, he was with Athens, and then he said, okay, I'll go back to be tried. He doesn't, he disappears, and then reappears in Sparta, starts advising the Spartans. They get tired of him, so he runs over here, is making these moves to basically, like, cause all this havoc in Athens. Is dealing with Persia. He's all over the place, what the heck? Like, Al is making a lot of moves so far. He might just be the most interesting guy so far in this series because of just everywhere he's going, all that he's doing. Like, you know what I mean? Al is making some big time plays right now, and I'm really kind of amazed by it.
The local insurrection was put down, but in Athens the coup was successful, and the tyranny of the 400 was established. A faction which almost immediately fractured internally, splitting into moderate and extremist factions. The radical oligarchs began negotiations with Sparta, which angered the moderates, who had agreed to Alcibiades' plot solely to gain Persian money to fight against Sparta. Eventually, the radicals were removed in another coup, and the moderate Council of the 5,000 was established. It was during 411 BCE that Sparta deployed some of its ships to Eretria. Athens believed they were heading for Athens due to links with the Athenian oligarchs. The Athenians soon realized where the Spartans were going and set forth to go to Evia, an important granary for the Athenians. The Spartans looked to Oropus as a safe harbor to take over the island, as they worked closely with their Boeotian allies. Athens manned its remaining ships, followed the Peloponnesians, and then met up with their powerful Eretrian allies in the region. resulting in a combined force of 36 ships. After landing at Eretria, the Athenian sailors moved out to procure supplies. Unbeknownst to them, they were about to be betrayed, for Eretria was now in cahoots with the Spartans. In a ploy to sabotage their Athenian allies, the Eretrians had arranged to empty the market that the Athenians would shop from, so they would have to go outside the city to acquire provisions. Then the Spartans intervened after a signal was set, possibly a walking Egyptian dance move by the Eretrian contingent.
Wait, what? Sorry. That's amazing. You just see some guy doing this. Like, walking like an Egyptian. Like, be like, what the heck? Yo, this is completely wild, dude. I'm telling you, it's kind of giving me, like, Napoleon vibes. You know, after when Napoleon invaded frickin', Russia, and then, like, afterwards, like, his military strength was broken, and then it just all fell apart? I feel like Athens' invasion of Syracuse essentially has the same effect. After that, everything's just falling apart. They're just, like, everything's going wrong for the Athenians, and here, this whole ambush, like, oh my goodness, man. This is so wild. I love this series. I love Kings and Generals. He's like, have I told you he's my favorite YouTuber? Of all the history YouTubers we've seen, Kings and Generals reigns supreme in my eyes. Like, you know, he's as mighty as Heracles, you know? So yeah, this is just wild. Wait, let me get that again. Was that seriously the signal?
Possibly a walking... Then the Spartans intervened after a signal was set, possibly a walking Egyptian dance move by the Eretrian contingent. Agesandridas, the Spartan commander, immediately sailed to the city to engage the Athenians at sea. The Athenians dashed to their ships and weighed anchor. They fought at sea, but eventually the Athenians were forced to disengage and were confined to the shore.
Again, earlier this series, the Athenians were basically unbeatable in the sea. The tables have turned. They've just been taking losses in the sea left and right. They no longer have the naval superiority, man. Wow. How the tables turn.
However, ominous news awaited them as the Eretrians supported the Spartans and massacred many of the soldiers. A total of 22 Athenian ships were captured, and their crews were captured or killed. This spelt the end of Athenian influence on Evia, with the entire island rising in revolt, except for Oreus. Soon, Sparta had taken over the isle and deprived Athens of one of its most crucial breadbaskets. The Athenian navy at Samos, which was a pro-democracy stronghold and an ally of Athens, was now in turmoil and sought to restore democracy in Athens. Though they considered him a traitor, they asked for Alcibiades to lead the army due to his previous reconnecting with them and his promises to help them. Around here, we must say goodbye to Thucydides, the historian whose records have been crucial in helping us chronicle the war. His text ends here rather abruptly, as he presumably died around 400 BCE before he could complete his magnum opus. His text showed a profound realism and a keen understanding of the suffering inherent in war, and scholars to this date debate his real character and philosophy. From now on, we will focus on sources from later authors, such as Xenophon or Plutarch. The moderate oligarchy in Athens...
So Al is back with Athens. Again, he's all over the place, man.
Sought to secure grain imports from their other breadbasket, the Hellespont. They managed to have a few successes in the Hellespont, with the first being at Cynossema in 411 BCE. The Peloponnesian fleet was stationed at Miletus, but the local satrap Tissaphernes had not paid them in time. In the meantime, the Hellespont satrap Pharnabazos was requesting their assistance, so the fleet of 73 ships, led by Mindaros, began to move north. They stopped due to a storm in Icarus, and then moved to Chios. The Athenian fleet of 55 ships at Samos, led by Thrasylos, moved up north in response, and when the Spartans stopped, moved to besiege a city in Lesbos. Afterwards, a certain Thrasybulus joined him, and the ships increased to 67 in number. The Peloponnesians pushed forth and landed at the Hellespont in Rhoeteum. Athens also had 18 ships at Sestos, and Sparta 16 ships at Abydos. The small Athenian fleet, fearful of a trap, escaped, but lost 4 ships, while Mindarus took the small fleet and now had 80 ships. Athens had 76 combined ships and moved slowly across the European part of the Hellespont, with the Spartans in Abydos moving across their shore. The fleets lined up in parallel across the straits, and the naval battle began. Thrasylos was on the left, and Thrasybullos on the right. Mindaros began to move.
Man, I'm losing confidence. Like, before, the Athenians in naval battle were always kind of a given win, but after last video and this one, it seems like they've lost their edge on the sea. I don't know, man. Like, I really feel like we're watching the downfall of Athens now. So, I don't even have much confidence that they can win. I guess we'll find out. I mean, it would definitely help build morale back, right, if they won this fight. But it seems like, I don't know. I guess we'll find out right now, huh?
Trying to outflank the right flank of the Athenians. The Athenians spread out their right wing and had their left wing continue to move up the Hellespont. The center of the Peloponnesians moved and pushed the Athenian center onto the land, where the battle became land-based. The Athenian wings at sea held on, and managed to defeat their enemies, coming to the center to save their comrades. They crushed the center of the Peloponnesians and freed their friends on land. Most Peloponnesian ships managed to flee, and as such had enough to fight another day. Athens lost 15 ships and captured 21, but the Athenians were finally winning after a long time, and were thus very, very happy.
Okay, that's good. Like I said, I was losing confidence in them. But that's a good little return to form in a sense. And yeah, they need that win. They were taking a lot of L's. So they definitely need some good news, right? Alright.
Abydos happened sometime afterwards. This is the first battle described after Thucydides ended his narration, forcing us to use Diodorus and Xenophon, whose accounts differ in some respects. In both accounts, a man from Rhodes called Dorius, who was helping the Peloponnesians, entered the Hellespont, was detected by the Athenians, and was pursued by them either with their whole fleet of 74 ships, or by a part with just 20 ships. The Rhodians, who, according to Xenophon, had 14 ships, landed on shore either at Rhoeteum or Dardanus, and were pursued by the Athenians, until Mindaros detected them and sailed with his main fleet, with Diodoros mentioning 84 ships. A battle ensued, but the Peloponnesians were pushed onto the shore, only saved thanks to Pharnabazos' timely intervention. Thrasybullos had the right wing of the Athenians, opposite Mindaros, and Thrasyllus the left, opposite the Syracusans. The battle took a long time, from morning until the afternoon, according to Xenophon. Then Alcibiades arrived with either 18 or 20 ships, and the Peloponnesians fled back to Abydos. Diodoros claims that the Athenians captured 10 ships, but were stopped by a storm, and by the time they reached the Peloponnesians, they had fled ashore, and they could not capture more ships. Xenophon doesn't mention a storm, but says that during the land-based battle, the Athenians did capture 30 ships, as well as their previously captured ships. As such, the battle was a major Athenian victory. However, even after winning victories in Cnosima and Abydos in 411 BCE, they continued to have issues securing total control of the region. Persia's navy was providing Sparta with assistance in blockading the Hellespont. The Persian satrap Pharnabazos controlled a significant cavalry force, which would become important in the land section of the battle, while the Spartan admiral Mindaros assembled a fleet of ships drawn from the entire Peloponnesian League. Diodoros Sikelos claims this united force comprised 80 ships, while Xenophon more conservatively claims it was around 60. The Athenian fleet, united under Alcibiades, was of similar strength, composed of 86 triremes. To avoid being locked inside the Hellespont, the Athenians moved into the Aegean and positioned themselves north of Gallipoli. Cyzicus was a city near the shores of Marmara, and the Spartan Navakos, or naval leader, Mindarus, was keen to besiege and take it over. The Persian satrap Pharnabazos joined him with his cavalry, and they quickly forced the city into surrender. When the Athenians reached the Hellespont, they hid in the city of Abydos to hide their true arsenal from the enemy. The initial plans of Athens are described.
Yeah, so the Persians getting involved seems to be such a really big, important issue for the most part, because, you know, the Spartans on land were already formidable, but with Persian aid, it seems like almost like doubling that strength and that prowess. So again, I think the Persian alliance definitely will help out Sparta more, while Athens is losing control of a lot of territory and like is struggling to hold the power that it once had over its league. So yeah, man, I don't know what the Athenians can do at this point.
Quite differently by Xenophon and Diodorus Sikellos. Xenophon describes that the fleet waited for heavy rain to approach the city of Cyzicus under cover of the downpour. Alcibiades took his squadron past the Peloponnesians, causing Mindarus to follow him. Alcibiades is said to have begun to land, and Mindarus came closer to do the same. Alcibiades is then claimed to have turned the ships around to chase Mindarus in a surprise attack, causing him to flee to a beach to the south of the town. The armies moved to the shore and began to fight. In this fight, Alcibiades emerged victorious, while Mindarus was killed. Syracuse fled.
Dude, holy crap, Al, chill. Like, I'm telling you, I'm like kind of really captivated by Al's journey through this. Like, all that he's doing, everywhere he's jumping to, like, I don't want to jinx it, but I kind of hope he's around for longer, because I'm interested in his thing. As I say that, he's sure gonna die in the next few minutes, imagine. But I'm kind of oddly interested in this man's journey and what he's doing. Like, I'm amazed, I'm sorry.
By burning its ships, and everyone else was taken prisoner. Diodorus claims Athens tried to ambush the enemy by splitting into three. Alcibiades sailed into Cyzicus with 20 ships, and then was to sail back to bait the Peloponnesians. Theramenes and Thrasybulus then took their own ships and hid, before attacking and blocking the Peloponnesians from the shore. However, this did not work as the Athenians intended. When Mindarus chased Alcibiades and the ambush was triggered, the Peloponnesians fled inland to Cleri. There, they met up with Pharnabazus's cavalry forces. As the Athenians chased them, they ruined many Peloponnesian ships, and then used grappling harpoons to take over the ships on the shore. The battle then moved onto the land. Alcibiades and Mindarus surrounded the ships, and began to fight on land to take over the remnants of the Peloponnesian fleet. Diodorus says that in this clash, Mindarus was killed, and the Athenians seized the entirety of the Peloponnesian fleet. Xenophon quotes a Spartan dispatch home, which laconically mentions how "the ships are gone, Mindarus has disappeared, the men are hungry, we don't know what to do." Cyzicus fell within the next few days, and with its conquest, Athenian control over the Hellespont was fully reasserted. The string of lightning bolt victories in the Hellespont greatly boosted Athenian morale. The mood amongst the people of Athens was high, as they had now secured their breadbasket in the Hellespont.
Yeah, that battle was that entire Hellespont adventure seemed incredibly important, because after losing their breadbasket here, if the Spartans could have done the same thing over here in the Hellespont, yeah, that would have been like disastrous. So again, Al and the Athenians here did great. Not only are they clawing back up from last video's humiliating defeat, but also have won a strategic victory by, obviously securing their breadbasket. So overall, pretty good for the Athenians. Good little rebound, Where do we go from here? Like, what more can we go? Like, this is just still, I don't know how, other than I know Sparta wins, I'm just like, the Athenians are still pretty formidable, So, man.
The moderate oligarchy was keen to capitalize on this victory, but not with further warfare. Instead, they considered a peace deal with Sparta, in which they would give over Pylos and secure their other gains elsewhere. The people and the Samian Democrats, however, were not having it. We're not sure how this unfolded, but we can assume that some local support flared amongst the people of Athens to restore democracy. We must also consider the class analysis, one that many philosophers of Athens disliked due to their elitism, that the 5,000 represented only the classes of the rich and the Zeugatai, whereas democracy represented the power of even the unpropertied lower classes of men. There is little detail of the democratic movement in Athens, but we can imagine the mass of the people slowly coming over to the idea of regaining power, as the fear of the Sicilian loss and the oligarchic chaos dawned upon them. Alcibiades and the other generals at Samos returned, and democracy was fully restored once more. They took harsh measures against tyranny, stopping the revision of old democratic laws, and bringing a grant to all citizens, called diobelia, or gift of 2 obols. The agora restored the bully of the 500, but with limitations on legal punishment and crimes. The important use of the wording of the first laws after the restoration made it rhetorically clear that the democracy of Athens was back and ready to fight for its interests and values. They also instituted that attacks on democracy were illegal. Athens had bounced back from a disastrous campaign.
Again, yeah, I thought this was just going to be a complete downfall of Athens, but they have bounced back beautifully. Like, they got their butts kicked hard in Syracuse, yet they have bounced back and won like 3 lightning victories again on both land and sea against the Peloponnese. Like, again, just the Athenians are just so formidable in this series, and like, it's really amazing. Like, as I have been very ignorant of the Athenians, this has been, like, you know, very enlightening. It's definitely given me a new perspective on the war and just Athens in general. And yeah, just wow.
And economic and political chaos. The war, however, was not over yet. The Peloponnesian League was still out there, and the Athenian Empire was now trying to hold on to its newfound gains. Persia was now fully engaged in the war through Sparta as an ally and a proxy. The Peloponnesian War's second phase was now fully underway, and Athenian generals like Alcibiades were ready to continue the war.
And we're going to be learning more about this second phase tomorrow. I'll see you all then, everyone.